Virtual environments are very important topics in Python. When you're working with Python, knowing and using virtual environments is very important. But as a beginner, they can be confusing. So I created this series of 2 videos for my students. This was taken from my course for Python and Selenium course, and I decided to share it on YouTube because it will be very, very useful for anybody learning Python and anybody learning virtual environments. My name is Adam Askanfu from supersqa.com, and I help people learn QA automation or get a new career in IT by becoming a QA or a software tester in automation. So check out my website, like and subscribe to this video if you like what you see. I put out content related to QA automation. All right, so it's going to be a series of 2 videos. On the first video, we're going to talk about what virtual environments are, how to use them, and why they are so cool. That's really important, so you got to watch this one. And on the second video, we're just going to actually see it in action. We're actually going to create one and use it, okay? Create few and use them. And I'm going to show both Mac and Windows, even though the concept is exactly the same. All right. Welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about virtual environments. Virtual environments are very important and they can be a little bit hard to understand at the beginning, but they are really, really easy once you get used to them, okay? And it's important to know them. So at the beginning of the course, it's totally optional. If you don't understand it, first, I recommend going and watching other videos, see if you can understand it. But if it's a little bit challenging, totally skip it. It is totally optional at the beginning of the course. Please pay attention to that. It is optional because a lot of people get stuck and spend a lot of time on it, and I don't understand because I'm always specifying and being clear. It is optional. You do not need it. You can keep going until you get to the Selenium part. Then you can start to by then you're more comfortable with Python, so things are a lot easier to understand. Then you can pick up virtual environments then. So I want to emphasize they are optional. That said, they are really cool, really important, and it is good for us to understand them, okay? And I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. And if you don't understand it, if I didn't do a good job of explaining them in this video, please send me a message and let me know. I could redo this anytime. All right, so just quick description before we get to the demo. The point of a virtual environment is to keep our projects isolated. In our system, we have different versions of Python that we know that we've seen that. But even with, let's say we want to use just one version of Python, the latest one, right? Let's say 3.11 is right now. Even if we're using 3.11, but we still want to install different versions of libraries, right? We want to install Selenium 3 and Selenium 4, different versions of the same library. And with virtual environments, we're able to do that. We're going to have separate environments that have their own thing. So we can create an environment, install everything we want to do in it, and experiment and create another environment and install anything in there, whatever versions we want of all the libraries, experiment, and we can keep doing that. And when we're done with it, we just delete that environment without affecting our entire system. If we don't use a virtual environment and we just install it on our main Python, let's say our main Python is 3.11, if we install everything under 3.11, then we cannot install 2 of the same libraries with 2 different versions. We cannot do that. And to clean up later on is even more difficult. So a virtual environment allows us to create individual separate environments when we can do whatever we want to do and we get rid of it, okay? And it's nothing but a folder. Literally, a virtual environment is one folder. So we're going to see how to create it. And when we create a virtual environment, we are creating a folder. So let's just take a look at it. So we have our main Python, right? We have our Python 11 or Python 10. And when we create a virtual environment, we get to choose which one is going to be our base Python. We're going to create a virtual environment based on 11, or we're going to create it based on 10. All right. Usually you just want to do whatever you have, the latest one. Normally, I don't expect you to have both 10 and 11. There's no point in doing that. Python 2 and Python 3, that makes sense because they are completely different. And there are things that are not supported in Python 2 that are supported in Python 3. But 3 and 11, just 3.10 and 3.11, just get the latest one. But as a demo, I have it here on this slide. So when we create three different virtual environments, we're going to use the base, right? So when we create virtual environment 1, virtual environment 2, virtual environment 3, technically what we're doing is we are creating a copy of our main guy, right? So we create virtual environment 1 from 311, or from our Python, whatever our default Python is. Then inside of this guy, we're going to install things whatever we want. There is Python in here, and we're going to use the Python that's in there, and we just install Selenium 3 in there, Selenium 4 on a different one, right? Then when we're done with it, we can just get rid of this folder. We delete this folder and our virtual environment is done. We're going to see how to do all this, but in this one, I just want to show you the concept. So in this case, we create 3 different virtual environments, and in each one of them, we can download, install 3 different things, and we can use that version of Python. Now all of a sudden, we have 3 different instances of Pythons, and each Python has things that it downloaded inside of it. Whenever we install item with a Python, right, with one instance of Python, whatever it needs to download, like let's say pip install Selenium, right? We installing Selenium. It's installing Selenium under a folder that is for itself. It's its own ecosystem, its own hood, right? Its own neighborhood. And then we go to another virtual environment and we install stuff in there, its own environment, its own ecosystem. Okay, so we're going to look at that. So that's really the whole point. When we're creating an Python virtual environment, we are creating a copy of our main Python interpreter. Then 2 things important words to remember: activate. Once we create the virtual environment, we activate it. And once we activate it, we can use whenever we run the command Python is going to use the activated version of Python. All of this is going to make sense when we're doing it. It makes a lot more sense. So this is an example of 2 different virtual environments. So I created a virtual environment with a name. You can give it any name you want, venv, and we'll see it when a virtual environment is activated. It creates a parenthesis with the name of the virtual environment. So when we look at these 2 things on the right, on the left, this one has a virtual environment activated with a name venv1, and this one has one activated with a name venv2. And each one of them has different things installed in them with pip. And when you do pip freeze lists out all the packages installed. In one of the environments, we installed 3.1.1 Selenium, and the other one we installed 4.83. And in one of them we installed Python Flask 1.1, and the other one we installed Flask 2.2. You see that? This is the point. There's no way to install 2 versions of the same library in the same virtual environment, and a lot of times we want to do that. Let's say I give you code that I've designed to work with a specific version, but you also have another project that uses a specific version. How are you going to be able to run both projects? You cannot, right? Because one project expects a particular version of a library, this other project expects a particular version of a library. Then you cannot do it unless you have virtual environments. But when you have virtual environments, then you can keep everything separately. And also you can create 2 virtual environments using 2 different base Pythons, right? Like in this demo, I show you can use a base, like whatever the one you use to create the virtual environment is the one that the virtual environment is going to have. Like I said, originally they might be a little bit hard to conceptualize. It's okay to do it. Just follow the steps and do it without fully understanding it, and eventually it will come to you. That's totally acceptable and totally okay. How do we create virtual environment? It's really easy. Earlier, you have to install a different library called virtual env. You pip install virtual venv, and you have to use that to create it. And there's tons of other ways to create it. There's literally a lot of ways to create virtual environments. Just people take the main one and put wrappers around it and create their own version of it. But the main one that comes with Python 3 is venv, and this is literally how you do it. So you do Python 3 -m for module venv, and you just give the name, the folder you want. You can give it a full pass, so it's going to create a folder, right? It's going to create a copy of your Python and create a folder. So if you just give it any name, it's going to create the folder where you are right now. When you run this command, you're going to be in some folder, right? It's going to create a new folder in there. Or you can give it a full pass of the folder you want to get created. And it's another example, the same thing. So you do Python 3.10 and you do -m venv. That's the key, -m venv, and the name of the folder you want to get created, the name of your virtual environment. In this case particularly, it will create my venv-1, and you can give it a full pass to your Python. It doesn't matter if you do this, you do this, the same. If you do this, it's going to take your default. In my case, default is 3.11. Actually, my default is 3.11. If I want to use 310, I would do this. If I have some other Python and I can give it the full path, but the key is -m venv and the name of the folder. Okay, so this is basically how you do it. I pretty much is pretty much the same thing I have here. I have right here. And to activate it, again, we're going to see all of this. To activate the virtual environment, you do source, then the folder you just created. Whenever you create the virtual environment, it creates a folder, right? You just, this is on a Mac and or Linux. Source, virtual, the name of the virtual environment, /bin/activate. As soon as you do this, the virtual environment is activated and the name will show up at the beginning of your prompt. On Windows, you just type in the name of the folder /scripts activate.bat. You just type this in and you hit enter, it will activate. Again, we're going to see that. We're going to see it on Windows and we're going to see it on a Mac just in a few minutes. And on Windows, if you're using PowerShell, it's the exact same thing, but you're going to run a different script. So there's a script for CMD, which is .bat, and there's a script for PowerShell, which is .ps1 with an uppercase A. And we're going to just see that next. And as soon as you activate it, it's going to show up like this. The name of the virtual environment is going to be in the beginning of your prompt, and that's how you know it's activated. And also you can do which Python to see which Python is using. It should be using the one that's inside the virtual environment. And once you're done with it, you want to deactivate, you just type deactivate and this thing will go away. The virtual environment will be deactivated. Just type deactivate and that's pretty much it. Okay. And another trick, if you want to use your virtual environment version of Python without actually having to activate it, you can just give it the full path of your virtual environment. So this will be the full path to your virtual environment folder /bin/python, because remember I said there is a copy of Python in there and you run your script. This is just a little advanced. This is useful later on when you're doing things in Docker, when you're doing things in Jenkins. When you don't want to activate a virtual environment but you want to use it, you can just use the full path of the Python that's inside the virtual environment. Okay, so in summary, virtual environment is nothing but a folder that got created from a copy of the Python instance, the Python interpreter. So let's just look at some demos now.